What's up guys, Rascalman521 here, and today I'm going to be doing my review for The Walking Dead Season 8. I'm going to give my thoughts on each individual episode first, and then when that's over, I'm going to go over my thoughts on the season as a whole. So let's waste no time and get started right away. So starting out with episode 1, Mercy, I thought this was an okay episode, a little bit lackluster for a premiere. I thought the pacing was a little bit slow in the beginning, but once it picked up towards the second half, I thought it really got good. I love the callback references to with the Polaroid pictures, and then with Rick going, "You're gonna make me count." So there was some really great stuff in this episode. It was a little slow, a little bit lackluster for a premiere, but overall a pretty decent episode. Episode 2, The Damned, I think I'm in the minority that actually really liked this episode. You know, obviously it's mainly just, random background characters shooting at random background characters with not a lot of substance, of course. But I thought they did some really interesting stuff with Morgan and his kind of psychology in this episode, him going back into his clear state, and I thought the end twist with Morales was really good too. So overall, a decent action episode, maybe not perfect looking back on it, but I enjoyed it for what it was. Episode 3, Monsters. I thought this was another okay episode. This one, of course, we see Morales die right away, which is unfortunate, but of course, you don't want him to be a long-running character. I believe we also see Eric's death in this episode. Best part of the episode is for sure the Jesus and Morgan fight. And then you get the cool, shocking ending with Ezekiel and his men getting gunned down. So overall, a pretty decent episode. Episode 4, Some Guy. This was a standout episode, I would say, of this first half season. I thought the breakdown of Ezekiel's character was really well done. I love the parallels between the beginning and the ending of how confident he is to how just broken and defeated he is. The death of Shiva, as much as I liked it, I feel like they should have gone for more of an epic death rather than making it emotional. Like, they should have been like this really epic scene rather than make it the super sad scene. And then, of course, you got the scenes with Ezekiel and the Jeffrey Dahmer savior, which is always fun. And the stuff with Carol in this episode was a little weak, but because the Ezekiel storyline was so great, I'm able to look past that. So, a pretty good episode. Episode 5, The Big Scary You. I thought this was a pretty good character episode for Negan and Father Gabriel. I thought they had some really good scenes back and forth, especially when Negan is explaining the backstory with him and his wife. Some of the stuff with the Saviors, some of the stuff like the Sanctuary was a little bit weaker maybe. I always remember from this episode the really cheesy part where the Savior woman yells, "Thank God, Negan, thank God for you." But everything else other than that, I thought this was a pretty good character building episode. It was a bit of a slower one that we're used to seeing nowadays. Episode 6, The King, the Widow, and Rick. This one's a hard one to talk about because I barely remember anything from this episode. It's one of the most forgettable ones in the season. I believe this is the one with the dumb rocket launcher scene where Rosita shoots the guy with the rocket launcher and there's no impact at all. He just kind of explodes very unrealistically. So I really did not like that scene. Rick going back to the garbage people was just kind of stupid. And I believe this is the one where Carl gets bit, we find out later. So, yeah, just kind of a episode that moves along all the plots at a really snail's pace and very forgettable, in my opinion. Episode 7, Time for After. This was, at a point, my least favorite episode of the entire season, up until the second half. This one, we get a decent scene between Eugene and Dwight on the rooftop. But other than that, I mean, you've got the stuff with Rick at the with the garbage people. And there's so much plot armor going on there. Like, they have so many opportunities where he's holding Jada's gunpoint and they could shoot him, but they choose not to because of Rick's plot armor. And then you've got Daryl's completely idiotic decision to drive the truck through the gate, and even though the show tries to save it by saying that wasn't how they got out, it was actually Eugene's plan, and Daryl didn't really make a difference. I really hate it. I was like, Daryl, what are you doing, man? A lot of the characters acted out of character in this one, and this was one of my least favorite episodes of The Walking Dead history. Episode 8, How It's Gotta Be. Once again, I'm in the minority with this one. I actually thought this was a really good episode. Probably this season's best outing. I don't think I would add it to my top 25 list I made a couple months back, but I think this was definitely the best episode of Season 8. You've got some really good tension during the nighttime scenes with Negan outside the Alexandria gates. I think the stuff with Maggie's group on the road, even though it doesn't really lead anywhere, I think you got some great tension there. Reminds me a lot of the roadblocks from the end of Season 6. I personally believe the rooftop conversation with Carl on top of the Alexandria gates, talking down to Negan, is the best moment from this season. I just love the dialogue in that scene, and the music is so great. Really great character moments for both of them. The Rick and Negan fight I felt was a lot better than the Rick and Negan fight in the finale, although it has the really dumb moment of Rick hitting Negan with the butt of Lucille. Yeah, there's some dumb moments in this episode. I will admit it's not a perfect episode, but I really think for what it was, I thought it was better than what a lot of season 8 was. And as much as I disagree with it, I thought the way they revealed Carl's bite at the end of this episode was really good. So overall, just a very enjoyable episode, and I've seen it twice, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. Coming back from the mid-season break, we have Season 8, Episode 9, Honor. I felt this was just an okay episode, which is really sad to say, considering it features the biggest death of the series thus far. I just thought they drugged this one out a little bit too much with Carl's death scene. I felt like some of the character goodbyes are really weird. Like, I thought it was odd that he had a really long goodbye scene with Sadiq, but he only has like a 5-second scene with Daryl. It's kind of awkward. It comes off really weird, because they've known each other for so long. I thought the stuff with Carol and Ezekiel, or Carol and Morgan trying to save Ezekiel was fine, but I thought they stretched that out way too long. Gavin's death should have come at like the beginning of this episode. Like, you can tell they're so clearly building up to his death, but then he just keeps slipping away. It's really lazy writing to just drag it out to the end of the episode. Although I did like the reveal of Henry killing him. That kind of puts a lot of things into perspective, reminiscent of Carl killing that kid back in Season 3, in the Season 3 finale. But I think the thing that bugs me the most about this episode is with the Carl, Rick, and Michonne scenes. It's almost like manufactured sympathy. All of the dialogue just feels very forced. None of it really... It just doesn't have that hard-hitting... I mean, some of the stuff works really well. It just doesn't have that hard-hitting gut punch, like, oh my god, this is so sad. Nothing, like, even close to the magnitude of Glenn's death. The only moment I remember I really liked in this episode that I kind of got chills when he said it was when Rick, in like a really high-pitched voice, says, "It was all for you, Carl, it was all for you." Like, you can just tell, like, it just hit him right there, like, the one thing I've been fighting for is now gone. It's leaving me. Which kind of, makes you think, okay, well, is this a smart move on the show's part? I personally don't believe it is. We'll get into that later on in the video. But I thought that was a really well-delivered line and a really good line to put in. And I also love the Negan flashback, or not the flashback, the Negan dream sequence where you see Negan in Carl's vision, saying, "Good morning to you, darling," to Judith. I just thought that was funny. I thought that was just a good moment. So yeah, overall a sad episode, but it didn't have that emotional gut punch that I felt like it needed to be memorable. Episode 10, The Lost and the Plunders. Once again, this episode got a lot of praise. I thought it was kind of weak, if I'm being completely honest. I really like the stuff with Rick and Michonne at the beginning, kind of like, taking their anger out on the walkers and kind of just, shuffling around Alexandria, just kind of, acting all broken and defeated, and kind of Michonne trying to put out the fire. But there's some good scenes there. The stuff with Simon and Jadis, there was some decent dialogue there, although I think they drug some of those scenes out a little bit too long. Some of the stuff at the garbage with the garbage people. The way they mess with the timeline in The Walking Dead usually bugs me, but it wasn't that bad in this episode because it kind of like leaves you intrigued in the intro, like what happened to the garbage people. So I was all fine with it in this one. I was fine. It was kind of funny to see the garbage people die. I was fine with it, but it was kind of funny because it's almost like the creators of the show were like, we're going to try to introduce this new group and see how they work, see how it tests with the audience. And then when a lot of people were like, no, this group is boring, I don't care about them, it's kind of funny because they're just like, okay, fine, we'll just kill them all off except Jadis in one episode. So I just thought that was funny. And then you get some of the scenes with Aaron and Enid at the Oceanside, which was pretty useless, and I'm going to talk about that. And then I really liked the scene between Rick and Negan on the walkie-talkie at the end. That was one of the better moments from this season, and probably one of the best, like, maybe top 5 scenes from the second half. So, a couple of good moments mixed in, but in reality it's almost like, maybe half a good episode, half of stuff you could just kind of, forget about. Episode 11, Dead or Alive Or. Really odd title, to be honest. But we have reached it, guys. This is by far my least favorite episode of the season. This episode just, honestly, it kind of pissed me off when I watched it, because I was really sick the weekend this episode came out. Like, I'm talking, like, bedridden sick. Like, I did not want to get up off the couch at all. My body did not have the energy. And I was looking forward all day to watching this episode. And I was just let down because it's just, it's a slow progression of all the plots, which I suppose, yeah, we get to touch in with a lot of different characters. That's cool, I guess. But almost none of them go anywhere. Some of the stuff with Gabriel and Dr. Carson is kind of interesting. It's fun to see those characters bond. But then Carson dies. And then, of course, I don't even remember a lot of the stuff that happened in this episode because I just kind of forgot a lot of it. Because, like I said, it's just such slow progression. You get, oh my god, I almost forgot, Tara in this episode. has become by far my new least favorite Walking Dead character of all time. I cannot stand her constant need to kill Dwight. Yes, we get it. He killed Denise. I understand that. Stop beating it into our heads. We know she wants to kill Dwight. She wants to kill Dwight. And then she like completely sabotages their plan just to try to get revenge. I just cannot stand Carol, or not Carol. I cannot stand Tara. Just absolutely one of the worst episodes in Walking Dead history. I don't even want to say it was like completely bad. I mean, because there were some decent moments mixed in, but this episode, man, I could if more of it was fresh in my mind and I hadn't forgot about it, because it did air like 2 months ago, I could rant on about this episode for a good 10 more minutes, but I'm just, some decent moments, but just overall, one of the weakest episodes of the entire show, without a doubt. Episode 12, The Key. I thought this was a pretty fun episode. By today's standards, I thought this was a pretty good one. There's a couple writing issues, of course. You know, I mean, they got to stop doing the stuff where, you know, Rick runs out of ammo while he's trying to shoot Negan, and then he just kind of runs after him. You know, have him like have his gun jam or do something where he can't use his gun, because it's really hard to believe that he can shoot a walker from 50 feet away with his Colt or whatever, his Python, yet when he has an assault rifle and Negan's like 10 feet away running, he can't even hit him with one bullet. It's unfreaking believable. It gets really annoying. But with that aside, this was just a great kind of cat and mouse episode. You know, the dialogue between Rick and Negan in the warehouse is one of the best moments of the season for sure. A lot of the best moments I've noticed are really the dialogue moments, which is kind of funny considering this is a whole action season, and the moments that really stand out are the moments of dialogue. Some of the action with like Rick and Negan I thought was really great. I loved Rick lighting Lucille on fire with Glenn's lighter. That was so cool. I love that. And then the stuff with the new character of Georgie kind of made me think, you know, is that going to be like the Commonwealth from the comics? I'm kind of curious where they're going with that. It was kind of funny seeing the actress playing Georgie. Being a House of Cards fan, I'm like, shouldn't you be recovering in a hospital bed from being yeeted down the stairs by Kevin Spacey? So that was just fun. Just overall, a pretty fun episode, a good action episode, and with a fight that is certainly better than the season finale fight. I will tell you that. So really fun episode for sure. Episode 13, Do Not Send Us Astray. I thought this episode started off really strong, and then slowly kind of dwindled down into, it's okay. I think that action in the beginning of this episode was great, especially kind of Rick just popping out of nowhere with his assault rifle. I love where all the saviors are lined up in the pitch darkness, and then they light up the car lights and mow a bunch of them down. Once again, a lot of, you know, red shirts fighting red shirts kind of thing, but it was still entertaining to see. So the action stuff was great, and then the second half of the episode, I feel like the middle of this episode, there's just a really long stretch where it's just a couple character dialogue scenes, and nothing's happening. And then you've got some of the, towards the end, the scenes with Tobin, you know, rest in peace, most important Walking Dead character of all time. You have the scene with Tobin turning into a walker and kind of, you know, biting some people, kind of reminiscent of the Season 4 stuff in the first half. But then there's some writing issues in there too, with like how come nobody heard him, how come there's nobody on guard duty or nobody on, you know, guard watch or whatever. And it was just overall a decent episode. Started off really strong, slowly just kind of became an average episode in my opinion. Also got to say that in this episode, Henry cemented his status as only second to Tara, the second worst character in The Walking Dead currently. It's so dumb. You know, why did he not shoot? He could have just shot them through the chicken wire fence. It would have been so easy. If, like, even if they had to do the scene, if they had to do the scene at all, they really did not have to have him go inside there and unlock it. It's just such a poorly written excuse to have all the saviors get let out of the cage, go running free, and for them to have to track them down in the next episode to pad out the season. Just a really stupid character moment. I get they're trying to make him like the new Carl, making dumb decisions like that because he's just a kid. But I did not like it. It didn't work. Henry is just so unlikable, and I really hate to say that too, because I mean he's a kid actor. He's a pretty good kid actor too. Just the writing for his character is he just comes across as very annoying, more so than Carl ever was. Episode 14, Still Gotta Mean Something. This was just another, you know, average, okay episode. Of course, we get, you know, Carol and Morgan kind of out on the road looking for Henry, with Morgan's sanity slowly, you can see it slowly starting to snap a little bit. And of course, it becomes, you know, Morgan and Rick on the road, and they get caught by the saviors, and they kill them all, they mow them all down, including Jared. A death that I feel, they wanted to have more impact than it actually did. Like, he should have died way earlier on. It's just they clearly just stretched out his death so they could give him this kind of big moment for Morgan, which really wasn't much of a payoff anyway. So wasn't really crazy about that. Although I did like the scene. I did love the scene where Rick asked Morgan why he saved him, you know, in the very beginning, and I thought that was a really cool character moment for those two. One of the better scenes between Rick and Morgan we've gotten in the series. And then the stuff with Negan and Jadis was alright. It wasn't really that compelling, because you know Negan's going to get away. You know they're not going to have Jadis kill Negan, especially not before the season's over. So there really wasn't much to that. The helicopter stuff was intriguing, I suppose. And then they find Henry in this episode, which is unfortunate, because I was kind of hoping they would have found him eaten by walkers, maybe to like parallel Sophia's death or something. But yeah, just another average kind of slow progression of the plotline episode. And it was just okay. It was just clearly to pad out the season, but it was alright. I was entertained. Episode 15, Worth. This episode was definitely a step in the right direction. I thought this was a pretty decent one. The subplots definitely bogged this episode down. I thought them capturing Eugene, while I really like Rosita telling Eugene that he's going to rot in a cell, a lot of the... I mean, it just that whole subplot felt very wasted, especially since he gets away like 5 minutes later anyway. So I didn't really care too much for that. I thought Carl's letter to Rick didn't really have that much emotional weight to it. I wasn't like, oh man, that's really sad. I was just like, oh, okay, you know, Carl wrote a letter to Rick. That's pretty cool, I guess. Aaron at the Oceanside is just painfully annoying and uncomfortable to watch, even though I freaking love Ross Marquand as an actor. It's just like, I do not care about this in the slightest. Get back to the main story, please. But all the scenes at the Sanctuary, the conflict between Negan and Simon, I thought was really well executed, and I really liked it. Even though the fight with them could have lasted a little longer and maybe had some dialogue mixed in, I thought the way he chokes him out, I thought it was just a really cool fight, and even though I love Simon, and he was probably the standout character of this season, for sure, I'm sad to see him go. He was a really great actor, and I just love Stephen Ogg. He's so great at playing bad. So, I love him. Episode 16, Wrath, the season finale, of course. Funny thing about this episode is I've been giving a lot of the season crap, you know, mainly for stretching out a plotline, stretching out All-Out War to accommodate an entire season, when it was clearly a storyline that's really just meant for one half season. But the thing about this episode is I felt like this episode actually would have been better splitting up its plotline, or all the events that happen in it, over the course of 2 episodes. You know, you kill some of the filler in the second half, you kind of spread this episode out among 2 full episodes. Because this episode really felt rushed, you know. The fight at the end, you know, with Eugene sabotaging the bullets, I thought it was alright. I thought that was a pretty decent character moment for him, even though, you know, I don't like the fact they're redeeming Eugene after all the stuff he's done. I think it's okay. I like the moment between him and Rosita, when she punches him or whatever. I thought that was fun. So that was all fine. It kind of, you know, makes the battle a little, you know, overhyped though, because there really is no final battle, because all the saviors practically just die in the beginning. And then the fight between Rick and Negan, they do that crap again, where, you know, he tries to shoot him, and then of course he runs out of bullets at the very last second. You get a couple of good swings. You get some good dialogue with Nick. I'm thinking Fear the Walking Dead, with Negan telling him, you know, it wasn't random, the eeny, meeny, miny, mo stuff, you know, I killed who I killed, you know, for reasons, you know, like, I had my reasons, you know, it wasn't just random. And then you've got the really dumb, you know, cliche villain thing where he's going over his plan, and he's letting Rick kind of have some final words before he kills them, and that's when Rick slashes his throat. It was just very cliche, not very lackluster final fight, I gotta say. Even though I really like the shot of Negan holding his neck with the blood coming out. And a lot of the wrap-up stuff is alright. You know, I really like the moment between Dwight and Daryl. That was all fine. I kind of like the Sanctuary merging with Alexandria in terms of supplies. I thought that was fine. Kind of decent build-up to, you know, the new beginning. I thought the Rick and Carl flashback, where them walking down the dirt road, just felt kind of unnecessary, since it was only in the episode for like 10 seconds. And the scene with the hilltop showing up I thought was very weak, because I didn't even know they showed up, you know. It was like they're on the screen for like 5 seconds throwing Molotov cocktails, and then they're never shown again in the entire episode. I don't even think you see Aaron or Cindy in that group, so it's like, okay, are these just supposed to be random goons from the woods? Are they just supposed to be, you know, wood dwellers or something, or are they the ocean side? It's really hard to tell. And then the scene with Maggie and Daryl and Jesus at the end is just weird. I don't like it. I think it's just it's really stupid. I literally laughed out loud when I saw it. But we'll see what direction they take it next season. lackluster season season finale, but there was some decent moments mixed in, I do have to say, and a good soundtrack. This episode had a really good soundtrack too, especially the track at the beginning of Rick talking to Sadiq about Carl's final moments. The song during that scene was great. I'm gonna listen to it on YouTube as soon as I can find it. Really great stuff. So those are my thoughts on all the individual episodes, just kind of going over the season as a whole. This is a really tricky season to judge because there was some truly great stuff in the season, and then there's some really just dumb stuff. This clearly felt like it should have been a half season, this whole storyline. Can you imagine how epic it would have been? Season 7 first half, Rick just completely being beaten down by Negan and the Saviors and deciding to revolt maybe in like episode 5 or 6, kind of gathering some forces at the kingdom and the hilltop, and then the mid-season finale, him and all the other communities attacking Negan in this big fight, and then the season 7 mid-season premiere starts off with them attacking the sanctuary, and then you condense all out war into one half season. Would have been so great. It just would have made the perfect, just the Negan season. You've got the season of Negan. I would have loved it that way. I really think a lot of fans agree, but they have to stretch it out so they don't catch up to the comics, I guess. But overall, just a lot of the stuff this season just felt like, forced, or felt like they added it in just to pad out the runtime, because, it has to, it'd be kind of weird because, if this was just a half season, Season 7's damage was already done, okay, they already made that a whole season. But say that, Season 8, they can't just do a half season because they need an entire off-season break to rebuild the community for the time skip, to kind of make it all look different, change the character looks a little bit. So they can't really just, go right into that. They have to take some time off to kind of, make the environments look different, make the characters grow, let them grow out facial hair, make them look different for the time skip, so I get that. But yeah, it would have just been so great had they condensed this entire 2-season story arc into one season. It would have flowed a lot better. I think it would have been a lot more engaging, a lot faster paced, and it just would have really made for probably the best season of The Walking Dead, in my opinion. You take the best from both seasons, combine them into one, would have really made some truly compelling stuff for sure. As far as Carl's death is concerned, I'm still really confused by it. I don't really see why they needed to add it in there to make Rick think, differently about killing Negan. I think he could have reached that conclusion just fine on his own. You could have changed up some things from the comics. You could have done something differently. I don't think killing Carl going forward in the show was a really smart move. He's the future of this world. He's Rick's driving force to keep fighting. And when you take that away, what do you really have left? Personally, I think it was a really dumb move on the show's part. I'm assuming there was some behind-the-scenes stuff that went down, because I really don't think they would just willingly kill the future of the show like that. It seems really odd, and the way that it was executed, like I said, I thought episode 809 was very, it just didn't have that emotional gut punch, and the way it all kind of came around with the letters at the end of the season just didn't really deliver that satisfying of a conclusion to me. So I'm just kind of left feeling, well, they kind of just wasted a huge character death right there. They wasted a huge character, and the death kind of felt meaningless. So personally, I really would have liked to see Carl going forward in the show, but I guess we're not going to see it, unfortunately. Comparing this season to Season 7 as a whole is a really tricky thing to do, because I feel this season overall, this season was more entertaining. It was more engaging than Season 7. It was faster paced, there was a lot more action, a lot more stuff to keep the viewer or the audience, kind of engaged and interested in it. But I felt like the season suffered from a lot worse writing than Season 7. Because Season 7, even with all of its faults, it had some truly great episodes. Sing Me a Song, Heart Still Beating, The Day Will Come When You Won't Be, one of the few Walking Dead episodes I would describe as truly a masterpiece. I love that episode. And then even the season finale, First Day of the Rest of Your Life, has its problems, but it's still overall a pretty great episode. This season, while it had some strong moments throughout, this season didn't have a single standout episode, with the exception of the mid-season finale. But even that episode I didn't even think was super special or anything. I thought it was just pretty good. Like I said, a pretty decent episode in what I could consider the weakest point of The Walking Dead thus far, this 2-season stretch. It was a decent episode, but it was really nothing super memorable. And it's really tough to say. Which season do I say is better? Do I go for the season that, has better writing, but is slower and kind of harder to get through? Or do I go for the season that is faster paced and more entertaining to watch, but also suffers from worse writing and worse character moments and worse dialogue? It's really tricky to tell, because I gave Season 7, because I can't really decide which one is my least favorite season. They're both kind of the bottom two in my opinion. I'm going to give it the same rating I gave Season 7, and that's a 7.5 out of 10, in my opinion. Just some of the stuff I thought was really decent in the season. Some of the stuff really worked. Some of it didn't. Some of it was just kind of, just the writing. It suffered from the writing, and it suffered from having to be stretched out across an entire 16-episode arc. And realistically, when I'm looking at it, out of all the battle scenes we saw this season, I personally don't think there was a single battle that was as epic, or really even came close to being as epic as the final battle of Season 7, in the Season 7 finale, with Shiva, attacking the Saviors, and just that entire shootout at the end. Not a single battle I thought reached that epic level, because I love that scene. I've rewatched that scene multiple times on YouTube. There's been very few scenes I've rewatched on YouTube from this season. Like I said, the scene that probably I've rewatched the most is the scene with Carl and Negan outside the Alexandria gates, because I just love the dialogue in that scene. And there's a couple standout moments throughout the season for sure. I pointed out a couple. Simon's death is a great one. Just some different character moments, I thought, but overall, just not a lot of standout episodes, not a lot of standout moments. Some decent stuff mixed in here and there, but overall, a season that would have greatly benefited from being an 8-episode arc rather than an entire season. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, guys. What did you think of Season 8? Like I said, I thought it was an okay season. I don't think it was bad, but I thought it was just very average. I really hope they pick it up for Season 9. I'm really hoping to get some great stuff out of the New Beginning storyline, and I guess we'll just see where they go. I'm really hoping for some good stuff, though. I apologize it took me so long to get this review out. I was working on my Ash vs. Evil Dead figures, of course, and then just schoolwork got in the way, and this video kind of just got put on the back burner for a long time until I finally decided to get it done. So I hope you guys enjoyed my review. Let me know down in the comments if you had similar thoughts on the season, or if you had conflicting thoughts. I'd love to kind of have a debate with you guys in the comments down below. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.